Hey everybody, it's your friend Adam here. Figured I'd give you a little setup tour, little look-see at what I've got going. Number one, just take a look at that Ultravox poster. Wicked. Anywho, there's been some people asking me about different things, different instruments, and I just wanted to show everybody that I now have a phone, a house phone. No, I'm just kidding. We have the Yamaha CP20. This is a very old, like probably like 38 years old now, 40. One of the very first electronic pianos produced back in the 1970s. Does it sound anything like a piano? Of course not. Should it? Well, not really. They did the best they could with what they had. It's an analog piano. In other words, there's like circuits in it that are trying to approximate being the operative word here, the sound or character of a piano. And you've got your piano 1 and 2 and some harpsichord sounds if you want to get all funky. Actually, let me So yeah, I like it because it doesn't sound anything like a Rhodes or a Wurlitzer or a piano. It has its own kind of character. It weighs a fuck ton. It's built into its own case here, you see. And it has its own legs that you have to screw in, sort of like a Rhodes. And it's like I said, it's built into its own case and it has a cover back there. So altogether, the thing weighs about a cornea. Or maybe a stroke. One of those things. It weighs about heart attack. My arms are still killing me from lifting that fuck. And what better way to amplify such an old piano than with a very old Yamaha amp? And mind you, the cord I'm using with this webcam is obviously not that long, so this isn't a professional video. Bear with me. Got the Yamaha amp here. I just picked this up yesterday. Very cheap. But it sounds pretty good. I mean, it's got its own amount of coloration, and it adds something to the sound. And I'd rather it have that kind of, rock and roll kind of sound, because as is, this thing is very clean. I don't want it to be that clean. I want to give it a little soul. And, so I could distort it and whatnot. And I've got it running through a chorus pedal here, just to add a little extra movement. Now, obviously, this is one thing people have been asking, but the thing that everybody wants to know is the ARP Odyssey a real ARP Odyssey from 1974 or 5, or is it the new Korg remake? And to which I will say, of course it's the fucking Korg remake. Do you think I could afford a $3,000 synth on eBay? Especially when I could get the same thing, still very playable. Basically an exact replica, all analog circuits, remade. I mean, of course I'm going to go with this. It's not cheap, but it's cheaper. This is really my pride and joy, this sucker here. Now, mind you, I don't know how good my playing is going to be when I'm holding the camera with the other hand, but essentially, it's famously ARP. It's got that sound, that bright kind of oscillator sound. I turn that down a bit. And that's just one oscillator, and I'll brighten it up for you. Make it more like a trumpet. A little vibrato. I mean, this was my dream synthesizer since I was like 16, and I discovered like bands like Ultravox and Men Without Hats, who didn't use the ARP, but still Devo, Gary Newman, John Fox, big, all the big heroes of mine, but namely Ultravox, because Billy Curry from Ultravox, that guy, made this son of a bitch scream. What he would do, and I'm totally not going to be able to really do this while holding the camera, but he would make liberal use of one of the many then brand new features this thing had that no other synths had. For example, he would turn oscillator sync on, and would essentially sweep the second oscillator's pitch with, well, you don't give a fuck, but what he would do is he'd go apeshit with modulation while he was doing a solo and the portamento here, which allows you to kind of glide from note to note. And somehow, I mean, this was like his rock, and this was his like his Stratocaster, you know. In fact, of course, you've probably all, if you're interested in synths, have heard him say that this was essentially the first punk rock synth. You know, this was the first punk synth, while the other ones were doing like, you know, bleeps and boops and froggy little, you know, Moog type sounds. This was going out there and just screaming at people. I mean, just listen to this shit. Let me get something a little bit more, give you a better example of what I'm talking about. A better example would be if I turn the ring modulator a little bit down. Yeah. You'll notice, well, you won't notice, but I'm telling you that I'm using the third filter, because those who know, the Korg remake of the ARP Odyssey has all three filters that were ever used on the original Odyssey back in the 70s, because it had three versions that went from 1972 to 1981. This, since Korg allows you to pick what version you get, but gives you all the features of the very last version. They all looked different, so they figured, well, why not give people the option? I chose the second version. This was the one that was produced from like 1974 to 76, 77 maybe. And this is the second version, and it's black and has the gold like livery on it. And it's a blast. And I'm gonna say, for the record, just while I'm on this topic, on this video, anyone thinking about buying one of these should. It's an amazing instrument. And the PPC, this here, these are spongy little pressure sensitive pads where you press this one, the harder you press, the more the effect. You press this one to bend the note up, this one to bend the note down, and this middle one for vibrato. I'm gonna say they were good when I first got it, and this was like only like not even a month ago. I mean, but they are already worn to the point where it's like, I get why people in the 1970s who played this said that this was, it was more of a pain in the ass than just a simple knob. You know, you really have to push on these fucking things. I mean, let me tell you, that was always the big complaint, is the amount of force you need to push on to get the effect is so ridiculous. Like, I just hurt my finger. The middle one now barely does anything. Because, like, I have to grip the side of the case and push on it, and it's just easier to use the knob. Remember, folks, you can always just use the sliders here. They do the same thing. The pitch bend is still working fine, though, and it's useful. I will say, if you lean into it a bit, like if you lean into it on the top part, which is actually what they tell you to do in the old ARP manuals, is it's the top part of these are more sensitive. And you can't really see it in the video, but let's see if you can get the ridge there. But there's like a little ridge on either side of the button. You kind of push against that ridge up, like you're actually physically bending the note up, and it's a lot more effective that way. Let me see if I can give you a demo. I'm gonna have the synthesizer just making a continuous sound. They're very sensitive as far as how far they'll go. So you could do that, but for vibrato, I tend to just use the slider itself. Give you an example. Instead of using this middle one, I find it easier to just go like this. Little knob here, little slider. It's very easy to just diddle that while you, or fondle that, whatever weird pun intended word. To do that while you're playing, I think it's a lot easier, and it's a lot, you can control it a lot more, because it's not like you have to be constantly applying a certain amount of pressure and hurting your finger just to get it there. And for those who know, the ARP Odyssey has an incredibly wide range of pitch. For example, number one, you've got this little switch here, which will transpose the entire keyboard, which is very small, But don't let that fool you. Transpose it down, up, down 2 octaves or up. But then if I flick it in the middle, flick it up high, and that's just using this switch. I could actually raise the pitch so high that it disappears. You won't hear it. Our hearing only goes up to 20 kilohertz. I can make it go higher than that. So dogs and cats will be losing their shit. But beyond that, you won't hear a damn thing. I could also make it go so low that it ends up sounding like an electronic fart. It's just clicks. Pop, 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 pop. And the reason for that is because it's so low that your ears are perceiving it only as a series of clicks. Our hearing only goes down to 20 hertz. So at that low, like that tiny little length, you're not gonna perceive it as a tone. If I were to do this, you're not hearing a tone, you're hearing like a rhythm. But if I did this and sped it up like 100 times, you would hear like a brrr, and then after that, it would start to form like a note. You'd hear like, and I'll give you just give you an example. Fuck it. This is low frequency, right? You're hearing it very slow. Now, if I were to start raising it, so yeah, it's got quite a big range. Finally, to wrap this up, this video is getting a little bit long now. I've got, like I said, the amp with this, get a nice happy kind of melody. But if I want, I pull this here knob out. This is gain. This is how much. Very briefly, this piano is feeding an audio signal to that amp. There are 2 big knobs on here. One is master volume, how loud the thing's gonna be. The other one is how loud it's gonna be going in. Master volume is coming out. How loud is the sound gonna be coming out of that speaker? The gain, though, is how loud it's coming. It's the signal is going into the amp. Now, the easy way to the easy analogy is you got a hole about yay big, and you're trying to fit something this big into it. Now, yes, that was extremely sexual. And to further that point, I'm going to call this the cock knob. I'm just going to pull this cock here. And then, when you pull the cock knob, you're forcing something huge into the little hole, and out comes a very angry. So it's a lot more distorted, whereas if I turn the cock down, if I twist the cock, and then push it in, it goes back to being happy. So, yeah, that was fucked. But hey, what are you gonna do? And you'll notice that I'm having trouble looking at the camera that I'm holding because I can't make eye contact with the camera's eye. Fuck off. Just deal with it. And that was my tour. And this is my head. And this is me ending the video.